Hey team, how are you? And welcome to the Experience with Rehman Cee. I'm here with Lucia from the UK, and we're going to have a chat with her. Lucia, how are you?
Hi, Rehman. Lovely to be here. Thanks for having me. I'm good. I'm good. Can't complain.
Yeah, and I'm not doing a great job with my pronunciation of your name, so forgive me for that. I think
Just
it's
call me
Lucia.
Lou. Everybody calls
Lou.
me because it's easier.
Okay, Lou might be a good idea for now until I get more conversant with it. Um, how is England doing? You're near London. What's going on?
Yeah, I'm near London. I'm about a couple of hours drive from London. To be honest, where I am, everything is kind of okay because I'm in the countryside. So I'm surrounded by cows and rolling hills. So
Okay,
not too much trouble. London is a bit crazier, as you can imagine, but hanging in there.
awesome, awesome. So let's get into the show. So my first question always is, what is your message to the world, Lou?
So my message to the world is that happiness is for everyone, is attainable, and you should not kind of settle for anything less than that. And more importantly, because I think we tend to compare ourselves to others and then just think that whatever happiness means to them is what it should be to us. But I encourage everyone to really check in with yourself and understand what makes you happy and really aim for that. Go for it.
What is happiness?
Well, happiness is whatever you make of it, to be honest. Happiness, I think people tend to think that is that one big thing, that one big shebang that happens, like in the movies. But for me, happiness is the little things. Happiness is sipping your coffee in the early morning, looking out the window and seeing the sun. Happiness is playing with your children. Happiness is going for a walk and enjoying the fresh air. Happiness is in the little things.
So why does one need to be happy?
Why not? Why would you not?
Well, so we're almost getting in deep straight away. It's like, if that is the North Star, if that is the meaning of life, then definitely one should be happy. I'm saying, is the meaning of life happiness? Because we're setting a North Star, which is happiness, but we would have to validate whether happiness is the North Star first of all, no?
Yeah, and to a certain extent, but I understand. I don't think it's the North Star, um, but I have not met anyone in my life yet that doesn't want to be happy. Um,
Right. So, for example, and I'm going to get controversial straight away, is like you can have chocolates every day. That will make you happy.
or
But
not,
huh?
or not.
Well, more than likely, because the chocolate sales are pretty high, it's a good experience, and so it makes people happy. But having chocolates every day may not be good for you.
Mm.
So there seems to be a inconsistency with the goal of happiness and what you're doing to get happiness. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah, I see you. I don't think, at the level of happiness, I don't think it could be said as, chocolate make me happy. Maybe the sweetness in the chocolate makes you happy, the taste of it makes you happy, and you can
Right.
find that sweetness or that taste somewhere else that is also good for you. I think you could say chocolate satisfies you, but I don't think it's like a happiness thing.
So that's what we're doing here. We're trying to get to the, because if your whole philosophy is around happiness and we haven't defined what happiness is, then we're talking in abstract throughout the whole
Mm.
conversation. And so I'd rather get clarity on what happiness is, so that when we talk about it, everybody's on the same page, right? So if eating chocolates is not happiness, what is happiness?
I think happiness is a feeling. Happiness is something that you feel from the inside and kind of like, the way I define it is make your heart sing, gets your soul on fire. Happiness is something that makes you wake up every morning wanting to do what you're about to do or living the life that you're living.
Right. See, and that's where I wanted to kind of get to. I almost feel that people aren't being articulate enough.
Mm.
And so it's a very generic label that you paste on everything, almost like the love statement, where
Mhm.
life is about love. It's like you say happiness, but you're actually putting it as a label to mean something else. But it's easy to say because you're talking about the outcome and you're not talking about what you're doing to get the outcome. So happiness is not necessarily what you're doing. Happiness is what you're getting as an outcome from what you're doing. And it's what you're doing that delivers you the happiness. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I guess that you could put it that way.
So what would you say you have to be doing when you know, say it's the small things? What are you doing in those situations that is creating joy for you, or a sense of feeling, a positive feeling?
I think, and again, this is personal, obviously, because as I said at the beginning, happiness and that feeling of joy is different for everybody. But the way I do it for myself is I check in if what I'm doing gives me that warm feeling, if what I'm doing brings me a smile, if what I'm doing, I know when I look back in the years, I'm going to be looking at it with a smile, or I'm going to remember it in a positive way. That's what I was saying, that is in the little things. Like for me, one of the things that brings me more happiness or more joy is when I'm playing with my kids and, they just come and give you a hug out of the blue. I know that for me is true happiness in that moment because I can feel it in my heart. It swells and, is that warm feeling inside. So that's one of the parameters that I would use for people to be able to sanity check whether it's something that is giving them that happiness, that warm feeling.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question. If your kids are going to be hugging you, let's say if they hugged you 24 hours all the time, would you still have that feeling?
Yeah, but that's not realistic, is it? Because it doesn't happen. It's like the same as you were saying with chocolate. Yeah, you might like it. You eat chocolate all day, every day, you get sick of it.
Mhm.
So, I don't think that, say, like if you have too much of something is going to be, is going to make you sick, or, you would get tired of it. I think first off, if you really like something or something really wants your heart, chances are you're not going to get sick of it. I mean, I've been having 4.5 years of hugs now. And I can tell you, there's not been once where they have come to me and I said, "Oh, don't give me a hug. I don't want any more." If anything, I always ask for more.
Yeah.
So, the things that you really enjoy, I think they're always going to be there. They can shape, they can evolve, and they can transform because that's what we do. We are not the same as we were yesterday. Uh, but the feeling of it, the basis of it, it doesn't disappear. It doesn't change.
Okay. So just as an opening, I wanted to kind of have a quick discussion on that, but we'll thrash it out a little bit more as we get into the show. But talk to me about your philosophy of happiness. How did this arise? Obviously, you must have gone through experiences to determine this. Um, but why don't we just go back to day one? Why don't we just go back to the beginning and talk about your first point of awareness, which is you and your mum and dad? So tell me a little bit more about like your parents, how you were raised, what was their parenting style?
So I guess that probably is where it comes from because unfortunately my dad died when I was only 3 months old. So I was raised by my mum. And then she moved back to her family house where my grandma was there, and so was my aunt. So I was raised kind of by the three of them. And then tragically, my grandma died a few years after. There was me, my mom, and my aunt. So I guess in that sense, it was not that conventional upbringing that people are,
How old were
used
you?
to. When my grandma died, I was 5 or 6 years old.
Okay. And where were you born?
Madrid, Spain.
Okay, Spain. Okay.
I'm from Spain, yeah.
Yeah. So, so your grandmother passed away. You were 5. So let's carry on the journey.
So yeah, I think for me, seeing that, and I guess that from a very young age, appreciating that everything that happens here is temporary. um, I kind of understood the importance of taking the moment as it is, which is something that my mom also kind of said to me in a number of times. Like, she's always said, live today because tomorrow doesn't belong to you.
Mhm.
So I've always had that sort of approach to life, which was seize the day and, make it count. What can happen today that is going to make you smile? What can be done today that is going to make you happy? And I guess that's the way I've always looked at life. I always tried and see that positive side of it, that learning, and kind of like take everything as it was coming and say, yeah, okay, this is happening. What can we do with it?
So talk to me about your journey. How have you evolved? So your grandmother passed away. Um, do you have significant recollection of her?
Yeah, I do. I
Because you were
do.
only 5.
I was 5, yeah, but it's not like a vivid recollection, and it's not like I can tell you a million stories, but I do have like these flashes of me playing with her. um she was always kind of like that kind woman. Like, she would give me like a chocolate every Sunday, and she would play races in the aisle, or things like that. But she would always have like, that kind word, a hug waiting for you. She would always be like, how are you doing, singing me songs.
And how is your mum? What's her personality and your aunt's personality like?
So my mom is quite a strong female person, not in a character as in strong, grumpy, but as in, obviously she had to face quite a lot of challenges, so she had to take control of the situation, and you know put the world on her shoulders and be like, yeah, I'm here, let's do this. So you know she was sustaining the house. She was up, raising me, giving me the education. But equally, she was always very kind, very open. She's always been very generous. Um, she's always been there for everybody. She's been that sort of personality that if you needed something, she'll be there for you. And not just me, everybody around her. But at the same time, she's always known how to stand her ground, which I guess she needed to cope with everything else. So I guess, seeing that mixture of being a strong person, but at the same time being kind-hearted and generous and humble.
Yeah. Did she have any brothers or sisters?
Yeah, it was 9 of them.
Right. But your grandmother chose to live with your mother for what reason?
Well, my mom moved back into the family house.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was more like my mom chose to move back,
Right.
because back in the day, obviously my dad had, he was earning more money than my mom did. So when he passed away, she actually got offered his job, but it was a job that meant that she was not going to be in the house, or she was not going to be around that much. So she stayed where she was in order to allow for her to be around and make sure that I've lost my dad, but not my mum. So she was always there.
Yeah.
And so that meant that she needed to kind of like seek the support of my grandma.
Yeah. And you're the only child?
Yeah, it was only me.
Okay. And so what about your aunt? How much of an influence was she on you?
Oh, she was a huge influence. Unfortunately, um, she was in coma for a period of time, and kind of when she woke up, she was a little kid trapped in a 40-year-old body. So in a way, I said that I'm an only child, but I kind of have a very big sister, if you know what I mean. But she was adorable. She was, I think, because of that mixture, she had these crazy ideas, and she was always open to play with you, which not many adults will, but she would. Um, and she was always like, I remember coming back from school, and she'll be there eager to ask you what sort of day you've had, and she would have like the afternoon snack ready and stuff like that.
Excellent. So she wasn't really an adult kind of influence, more just a companion.
Yeah, yes and no, because obviously she had flashes of adulthood, and you would see her behaving and helping. Um, so I guess in a way, I also saw she was very, how to describe it? That, well, yeah, like in a child, like the way they see the world that is full of good, and they're very trusty, and they are very willing to believe in each other. So I think that's something I also picked up from her, in the sense that she saw the world for
She was,
opportunities, and she thought that there was always something good.
yeah, she was sincere.
Mm.
Okay. So how did you evolve? Tell me, how did you? You're an only child. Are there other children other than your aunt around in the house, or you just like growing up by yourself?
No, it was one of the other sisters of my mum. They've always been very close, and she had three boys. So I was raised with the three of them. Well, two of them. The other one came a little bit later on, but it's always been kind of the three or four of us playing together,
Yeah.
and yeah.
So it wasn't this sense of, singularity or being on your own all the time.
Not really, because we've always operated as a sort of community. Like the building that I was raised in had a very special community sense to it. It was like six different houses in one block, but they were all very close together. Like you would knock on the door and play with the other children that were in the house, or the grandchildren of the people that were in there. We would always be shouting from the park and saying, "Hey, come and play." So I've never had that sort of childhood that I felt I was on my own, or I was on my own, but I wasn't lonely. I never felt that I was lacking that sort of child companionship.
Yeah. So how did you evolve? How did you develop? How's your journey been?
I think it's been a journey of, I think pretty much like everybody, step by step, and then seeing the world for opportunities. So I was growing up, and when I left school, well, in school we were actually, funnily enough, me and my group of close friends, we were kind of considered like the ugly ducks, because
Really?
yeah, we were, because we didn't quite sided with the ideas of the school we were brought up with. But we were cool. We were like, yeah, okay, we're just doing our thing. We're happy with who we are, and we're carrying on. But funnily enough, when I started university, I kind of went, without me doing anything different, I went on to be like, one of the cool kids. Um, and I was one, like, the representative of the students for 4 years, and stuff like that, which I was like, I don't understand. I've never been cool to anybody's standards, but that's fine. I'll take it. And I had a
What,
blast
what,
there.
what do you attribute the difference to?
I think it's the open-mindedness of the people that were at the university, and I think for everybody was starting afresh, and we were just trying to find our way and being open-minded and open-hearted with everybody that was around.
Yeah, and
Um,
this is in Madrid as well.
yeah,
So did you have residency there, or were you coming back home?
no, I was coming back home because my university was like a 20-minute drive away, something like that. So I would still be living in the house and then going to university. Um, and yeah, I loved it. I had a blast. For me, communication has always been one of the biggest things. So I studied marketing. So obviously communication and the word was something huge, and I loved it. Like, learning how you can express yourself and the different ways in doing it and communicating to audiences. I found it very, very interesting. So I loved every minute of it. Like the 4 years, I was like, yeah, that's it. This is great. And then from then, I went on to starting my career in marketing, which I still do today. And yeah, it's been, oh, I don't know, 15 plus, 16 plus years doing that. And I loved it. I think it's one of the best jobs to do, work in anything that is about communication, and now obviously sidelining it with the coaching. But yeah, I guess, like, I've evolved slowly but surely. Like, taking every step, gaining every experience, and then going on to the next level and being like, yeah, okay, I've done this, I've tried that. What comes next?
So, how would you describe your personality over that journey? Have you always been the same, or has it been you've evolved in terms of personality?
I think you evolve, because we are always in constant evolution and transformation. But I think the basics of it, my values, have always been the same. I've always been somebody that looks for connection. For me, community, friendships, family, partnerships are at the center. I am a people person, and that's always been there. And then there's always been that element of having fun. Um, that, fun in the many ways that you can think of, but that for me has also been very important. I need to be doing or being with somebody that I know I can laugh with.
So, how did you, so what would you say your traumas were? What were your traumas by like what have you experienced as trauma, would you say?
Well, I certainly death has been one.
Right.
Because we've had a number of those in the family.
Right. Other than the first two.
Yeah. So my mum were 9 siblings. There's only 3 of them left.
Okay.
And
they're all in Madrid?
Yeah.
Okay.
They were all in Madrid. So that definitely has been one, and experiencing it firsthand. That's definitely been one of the, I wouldn't say trauma, but the biggest learnings for sure. And I guess that's also why I appreciate the fun in life, and seeing the positives, because I know that there's a hard side to it and a sad side of it. So I always choose what I know can help me stay on the positive side in a way. Obviously, not having a father, that's something that shapes you in a way, because you see the world from a different perspective.
How do you see the world from a different perspective if you don't have a father?
Well, like, it comes from very early on in school. I don't know how things are around there in the US, but obviously here in Father's Day, you would make presents for your dad and write letters to dad. And they would give you templates, right? Be like, okay, so does your dad have glasses, or does he have a beard? And I would be looking at those templates and being like, okay, I'm going to write this to my mum. And no, my mum does not have a beard. And my mum has those letters still where, I'm saying, my mum doesn't have a beard. So you see it, like, you go to birthday parties and you see mum and dad being there. And for me, it was mum. So you see the difference. And, as much as my mum did, and she's always been this loving force, but obviously she was my mum, not my dad. And I've never experienced what being a dad was. And I'm seeing it now with my children and my partner, and I'm seeing what being a dad is, and I'm like, this is beautiful.
What do you think a dad brings to the table?
I think, like, with everything in life, it's good to have different perspectives and different angles. And I think having a mom and a dad helps you see different perspectives and different angles, and seeing the differences in talking to each other. Like, the way we talk to our children is not the same way as we talk between each other. The discussions that we have as adults are not the same as you have with children, or even the approaches to daily tasks. So I think it's important to realize that the same thing can be done in different ways, for example.
Okay. So who are you right now? What's your identity?
Well, that's a tricky one. I don't know. Who am I? I'm still Lucia through and through. I'm still that happy, joyful person willing to do the best that she can every day and give love and receive love. I'm still that person.
Okay. So let's step back a little bit. Let's talk about something a little bit deeper in terms of the meaning of life. So you obviously have, experiences, and you're experiencing. Our experience, where does it come from? Before we existed, the universe existed. Is that random or non-random?
It's not random. I do think that it existed. I personally think that our body is just a representation of us, but our soul has more journeys to go on to. So yeah, I do think that it is more like we are here right now, but possibly we have met each other in a past life, or we're about to meet each other in a future life. I do think that we just, when we die, we just don't die. We carry on in a different way.
Okay. So you basically are saying that the universe is intentional.
Yeah.
That it's not random, it's non-random. So if it's non-random, it's by design. If it's by design, then nothing is ever designed for no reason. So what's the meaning or purpose of life?
I just think, like, depends on the way you look at it. But I think we've got some learnings to do. Our soul has some learnings to do. And when it does, it can't sort of disappear. It completes its journey and can go and rest. But I think the meaning of life is creating that fully rounded person, or that fully rounded soul, to be able to pass on the knowledge and continue the learning for those around you and help each other in their journey.
So you've mentioned this word a few different times, but we don't know what you mean. So what is the soul?
The soul is very hard to describe, to be honest. But is that feeling inside you, like, you describe like your inner voice, or you describe, people call it like when they have an aha moment, or that sort of thing. For me, that's the soul talking to you. It's something that you can't see, it's something that you can't touch, but it's something that is within you.
And you said its journey is to what?
It's to complete a learning and to share that knowledge and that learning with those around you.
So why would the universe create the soul to learn and then share learning with everybody else around? What purpose, what benefit would that serve the universe in creating that situation or that system?
Well, I wish I knew. Probably if I knew, I wouldn't be on that learning path. I will be on the enlightened path. So ask me that in a few couple of lives time, I might be able to answer.
How do you know that there are other lives?
I don't know. Like anything, like, I don't think there are many certainties in life. I don't know that there are other lives. I like to think they are. I like to think that feeling that you've got when sometimes you meet someone and you feel like, oh, I've met you before, even though you haven't seeing that person right now is because of something. I like to think that sometimes when you think you are remembering, but you haven't actually gone through that experience, but yet you vividly remember that feeling or that knowledge, is because you have experienced it before.
Are you a football fan?
Not really.
Well, let me use a football analogy anyway. But if you support a particular team, you support, let's just say, Arsenal. If you support Arsenal and you meet another Arsenal supporter, will you not have that same feeling of having affinity with somebody because they share something that's similar to you?
Yeah, you probably would.
Right. So what I'm saying is it a feeling in relation to a past life, or is it just a feeling in relation to a commonality, but you don't understand the commonality? So for example, if they talk about chemistry, and they're talking about guys and girls meeting and getting married, and there was just chemistry between them, you wouldn't say, oh, that chemistry is because we were in a separate life before and we had already met each other, and now we're getting on because we were in a previous life together, right? You would just call that chemistry. And then when you meet that football fan that's similar to you, it's an agreed understanding of your commonality. So why interpret the meaning of life to have other lives, past or future?
Sometimes it can be that it's a communality, but I've certainly have moments in my life where I just met somebody, shake a hand, or giving them two kisses as they do in Spain, and you immediately, and this is boys and girls, it doesn't have to be like marriage material, and you immediately feel a connection. You know that you're going to get on with that person without
Right.
even knowing whether you've got anything in common, and you do.
Right. So, I mean, how I interpret that is that the universe has underlying it wavelengths and frequencies. It's like you can have pictures or you can have audio, and they are different, but underlying that those things is the digital, is bytes and kilobytes. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Ones and zeros. So the underlying thing is what is connecting the people. So if two people are on the same frequency, they're vibrating at the same pattern of thought, then they would have that shared experience. Because even though they met and they've never met each other, if they have that same resonance, if they have that same frequency, then it would be as if they've always known each other, right?
Yeah, vibrating at the same level. It's that energy.
Yeah. But that theory would not necessarily mean you would have a past life or a future life.
No, you're right. It doesn't have to.
Right. I'm just reflecting over your points. So do you believe there is life after death? You said yes, right? And so how do you conclude that?
I guess the part of me is that, when you love someone that goes, you kind of, in a way, don't want them to leave. So I like to think that somehow they are still here. Call me naive, but that's part of me. But I also think, like, sometimes you do feel like there's something bigger than you. Or sometimes I found that when I am lacking force, then all of a sudden it comes, and I like to think that that's because I've got, whether it's people that have passed or people that
So if there is something bigger or higher than yourself that does exist, if the universe is non-random, do you try and have a communication with that awareness? Do you try and connect to it? Do you have any practices of prayer or meditation or something to that effect?
I do have practices of meditation, but not necessarily to try and connect to that higher power. When I try and meditate, it tends to be to try and get me back to center, and kind of calm me down or give me that moment of peace. It doesn't necessarily. It is not necessary to try and connect with that higher power. I don't have a practice of trying to speak to it. What I do is that, I do speak to my dad. I do speak to my aunt every now and then, and I say, "Hey, how are you doing?" Checking in, just keep looking at us. But I've never taken it any farther than that. Every now and then, it's just like like you would call a friend if you wish and say, "Hey, how are you doing? Hope everything is all right."
What do you believe in God?
I do not.
So what is that? If the universe is non-random, what is that non-randomness? How is it non-random? Like, how can you have intentionality without a higher power?
Well, I think, like, from a practical level, I believe in, like the Big Bang theory, and that it was all part of an explosion, and that, the same sort of life that exists on planet Earth may exist somewhere else, right? Like, if we are here, what makes you think that there's nothing similar out there? But I don't necessarily think that that was because a higher power created it for a purpose. I obviously respect those who do, and I know that people find facts one way or another. This is just my personal opinion, but I don't think it does have to necessarily have been created for a purpose.
Right. But you're saying the universe is non-random. So I was saying that anything that is non-random is by definition by design. And if it is by design, then by definition there's meaning and purpose. You don't design anything for no reason. That by definition, when you design something, there's intentionality in the design, designing. So if there is intentionality in the designing, then you would have to be. It's like an equation. If A plus B equals C, then if you add all the various variables up and they make a whole number and it's a valid number, then you can't claim that to be random. Do you get what I'm saying? The equation is valid. And so when you look at the Big Bang and you see it appear and it casts itself out and it becomes the universe and we become part of that universe, do you necessarily need to exclude God from that situation? Can that situation be created randomly, but can it also be created through some sort of higher power?
I guess it could. I mean, I don't personally believe in that.
Right.
But the same way, and I believe that it just happened because a number of circumstances aligned, and there was an explosion, and so happened, and evolution. The same was like dinosaurs went extinct, so will we at some point. It doesn't necessarily, for me, it doesn't necessarily mean that God created everything and has a plan for all of that to happen.
Well, I wouldn't use the word God, because the word God, unless you want to define it, has a lot of baggage with it. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not necessarily using the word God, but let's just break it down a little bit. So, for example, if you look at the universe and you look at the Big Bang, the unfolding of the Big Bang happened in a particular way. And when you have different temperatures, different elements are created. So when the universe is unfolding and you have elements, let's just say helium or oxygen, helium or oxygen is called helium or oxygen because it is of a certain property and value. It has a definitive description, right? And that's what chemistry is. That's what we call chemistry. And then if you break down the chemistry into an atom, in an atom, you have specifically a proton, a neutron, and an electron. Do you get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So you break that down, everything seems to have order. So what you observe as chaos, as the Big Bang, is not really chaotic because everything within that chaos has properties and values. So if things have properties and values, how do those properties and values come into place and remain consistent for us to be call them gravity, or call them helium, or call them oxygen, or call them whatever labels we put to them?
I'm not sure I'm quite there with you. I mean, it's something that, you know, I can't understand why someone or something would create. For me, it's just a chain of events that happen and unfolded that way. But I can't say whether it was something that was created by design.
Right.
And
What I'm saying is, if you observe, so when you look at that phenomenon, you observe it and you call it chaos, right? And because it's chaos, you can't attribute a higher power to that. But what I'm saying is, if you look at it carefully, it's not actually chaos, because that chaos has got you to a point where you exist. Do you get what I'm saying?
Mm.
And so you could argue, well, we just happened by chance, but the complexity through which you came to get here, the number of events, the sequence of events that you had to get to come be alive and be conscious, statistically, if you mathematically compute that, would you say you're a high stakes poker player?
No.
Would you gamble and put all your money on one thing?
No.
Right? So you're rationally looking at something and you're saying, I am not going to put all my chips on one thing because the odds of me winning are low, right? So if you look at the complexity of how the universe has been put together and the number of events that have come into place to get us to be alive, not even the human, just to get, bacteria to be alive, the probability mathematically of that happening is like very low. It's the equivalent of you putting all your chips on a single bet. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So if you wouldn't be a high risk poker player in the game of life, why would you do that with the observation of like existence?
Well, I'm not putting all my chips on the observation of existence. I understand that is just my opinion, and this is what I'm choosing to believe because to me it makes sense. But I understand that there's many different angles, is that many different possibilities and many different ways of seeing it.
Cool.
I mean, for me, as part of my journey, this is this is the way I think it makes sense to me, and for my mind, so it sits in and it's like, yeah, that makes sense.
So that's cool. So talk to me about coaching. So what are you doing as far as coaching is concerned?
So I work with both individuals and both companies to try and get them to unlock that happiness that we were talking on a personal level, because I want people to wake up every day and feel good with what they've got and what they are creating. And on a business company level, because I do think that when companies put that investment in getting an individual to be happy with themselves, then it translates into a more confident, more efficient employee, and therefore a better workplace.
Yeah. So how, I mean, are you doing like you're doing coaching with businesses and you're doing coaching with individuals? Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, that's correct.
So you're like, do you have so you're like a freelancer, you basically are out there trying to win clients and have clients. That's what
Yeah,
you do. Okay, so
that's
this
what I
this
do.
this is what you do full time, 100%.
No, so I am part corporate, so I do still have my marketing job that we were talking at the beginning. But on the sideline, I'm also a coach. So I go out there, and as you say, I try and get clients and help people out there. The same as helping companies with their employees.
Okay, so I've got a few questions, but before I ask that, what would you like to talk about?
Anything really. We've gone to all sorts. We've gone from death to metaphysical to coaching to happiness. So I think the sky's the limit, isn't it?
Yeah, we're just having a conversation. I'm disappointed you haven't got your cup of tea there or a coffee. You know?
Oh, it's nearly 10 o'clock here. So
Oh,
if I have my tea now, I'll be
oh, really?
going to bed.
Oh, well, listen, I appreciate you for doing this. I completely didn't register that at all.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It's the
Yeah,
citizens of the world.
you were?
It's being citizens of the world, isn't it?
Yeah, yes. There you go. So why
Isn't it
move to?
incredible?
Huh?
I was saying, isn't it incredible that you are in one part of the world, I'm in another, and yet here we are having a conversation like we were having a cup of tea
Yeah,
at home.
absolutely. And you know, it could be I could be next door for you know,
Yeah,
all anybody knows. I could be just next door, or this could be a pretend, you know,
yeah, a pretend
bar
sideline, but we're
in the middle.
definitely not there.
So how did you get to the UK, and why are you in the UK, given that Spain has a little bit better weather?
Yeah, it is, isn't it? What on earth am I doing here? So it's a funny journey because when I was working for my company in Spain, they brought me over to the UK to cover a maternity leave, which was one of the first times that they ever did it. But they just wanted to bring somebody from the local team and see how it worked internationally, which was, worked really well. And I certainly loved it. Then I went back to Spain, carried on with my job, and then moved on to another role that was a disaster. And I ended up quitting, went backpacking with a couple of friends around the world, kind of like doing that soul journey that we were talking about. And when I came back home in Spain, but it was 2012, I think it was, which was the year where the economic crisis was kind of severely affecting the country. So finding a job was more challenging. So I went back to the company here, for which I did that secondment and say, look, I'm back. I'm looking for a job. Don't know whether you've got anything going. They say, yeah, we do. So why don't you come and interview? And I got the job, and I was thinking, look, I'll be there for a couple of years just to kind of continue traveling and continue exploring and visiting new cultures and countries. But I fell in love with a country and one of its inhabitants, and nearly a decade later, here I am, 2 children,
How old are your kids?
4.5 and 2.
Four and a half and 2.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Okay. I've got a comment. Thanks, Chewy. She's saying it's a beautiful conversation that we're having, so appreciate that.
Oh, thank you.
So tell me a little bit more about yourself. Do you believe you're an introvert or an extrovert?
I think I'm an extrovert, but I do have my moments of wanting to be an introvert and wanting to have my calm and my my peace and re-energizing time.
Yeah. And then what about, do you believe you're emotional or rational?
Emotional.
Yeah.
I learned to be rational, but I'm always guided by my heart and my gut feeling.
Okay. And then what about in terms of, are you idealistic or realistic?
Idealistic.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting. I wasn't expecting that as the answer. Um, what about in terms of a risk taker or risk averse?
I think risk take more than averse. Yeah.
You're a risk taker. And then do you prefer, do you think you're practical or you're intellectual?
I would say more practical. Yeah. Mix of both, but more on the practical side.
Okay. And then what about, do you prefer certainty or uncertainty?
God, you're asking me this in the times of a pandemic where everything is uncertain.
Well, some people thrive in that, you know, they call them wartime leaders, you know, or peacetime leaders, wartime leaders. Which one are you?
Yeah, I think it's both, to be honest. I do like a bit of uncertainty because if we walk, I think, like, if we walk up every day knowing what to expect and what's going to happen, life will be boring. So you need to have a certain level of surprise and that element of I don't know what's to happen, but let's go for it.
Yeah. Okay. So if you were an animal, tell me what kind of animal would you describe yourself as?
Unicorn.
Okay. What are the three qualities of a unicorn you possess?
They are they're
Have you seen
courageous.
one? Huh?
They're courageous.
Okay.
I think they are colorful, not just inside, but not just outside. But I think they bring that spirit of anything is possible. I mean, if an animal can have 7 colors in one, surely anything is possible.
You said what, they're comfortable or confident? I didn't hear that word.
No, I just said 7 colors in one. Anything is
Like,
possible.
okay, so you're saying that they're courageous and they believe anything is possible. Is that what you're
Yeah,
saying? Okay.
yeah. And they are some I think they are, even though they are big, but they are like this cuddly sort of. You want to be around them
Yeah.
sort of thing. I like to think that I'm a bit like that.
You definitely want to ride them, right? Then get them to take you somewhere into the night sky.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Okay, that's very interesting. See, how I see you is I see you as like super practical. Um, so you interpret the word. I mean, I'm just throwing it out there. Who knows what what do I know, right?
God knows.
But the way you work the meaning of your life is through practicalities, how you experience life in the now, in the real world. Do you get what I'm saying? And you're trying to you're trying to navigate at that level, at the practical level. So, for example, a lot of people use the word happiness as, we should always try and be happy, and that the meaning of life is happiness. But it definitely, as I see it, is just an umbrella term for people saying that so happiness is a process and not a destination. So when you have it as a destination, then it doesn't make sense, because if you have chocolate bars all the time, eventually you're going to get unhappy. Do you know what I'm saying? Or if you have hugs all the time, eventually you're going to get unhappy. So there seems to be
Not hugs,
huh?
Rehman. Not with hugs. Hugs will never be enough.
Wow.
I'm not giving you that.
Because I feel we will get an answer to that as well when I've made my point, hopefully. But the point is that it's not a destination. Happiness is the process of experiencing, but what you're experiencing is meaning. That what really people are saying is that the meaning of life is meaning itself. So when your child hugs you, it's not the hug that you're actually experiencing. It's the meaning you get from your child hugging you that is so special. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because if somebody else was to give you a hug, you may not appreciate them giving you a hug. Do you get what I'm saying? So it's not the hug itself that is of value, it's who's giving you the hug, and not only who, but what connection or meaning they have to you. And so a child is something that was part of you, was inside you, that you've put out into the world. So that meaning is like, you can't break that bond, that connection between a mother and a child. Do you get what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
you probably could maybe have that for 24 hours and it would be okay, but it wouldn't be because of the hug. It's that meaning you're getting from that child hugging you, right? So I feel like a lot of people confuse this idea of happiness with meaning, that meaning is what we're actually searching for. And so the difficulties, like if you look at Martin Luther King or Mother Teresa, would you associate them with happiness?
In a way, yeah. Because what they did, what they stand for, or stood, sorry, it would bring happiness to
Right,
those.
right. So it wasn't that they were chasing after happiness. It wasn't the destination, is what they were doing, and happiness was an outcome of what they were doing. But what they were doing, did that necessarily show them to be happy? Like when you have an image of Martin Luther King, do you see him smiling?
Well, probably not. But again, I think there is a very fine line of the images that were or have been served to the world to what was happening with them. The truth is, we'll never really know what happened between closed doors. But I think for somebody, and I'm speaking for both, and any sort of speaker at that level, when you throw yourself at life with that passion, when you have a cause that you defend and fight for with so much passion, it has to entail for you a level of happiness, a level of joy,
Absolutely.
meaning.
Right, right. But I would argue that that's what the point is. That is the cause, is the meaning you're experiencing through which the outcome is happiness. Do you get what I'm saying? And so otherwise, I feel that the message is, in my worldview, a little bit misleading, because people will chase after, a lot of people are very unhappy chasing after material possessions. And they feel that if they get that career or the fast car or the big house or this or that, then they will be happy. But you can be equally happy with absolutely nothing. And as long as you've got some food, you're still good. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
so it's a more a kind of an alignment, like you said, with the soul.
Yeah.
And so I'm just arguing that the soul is not random. So there, if it's not random, then if you don't believe in something big or greater than yourself, or if you imagine that the universe is just the Big Bang, then there's a disconnect between that randomness that has actually created the soul.
Well, yes and no, because I do think that happiness, as you said, is not that final destination, is not that final point. Happiness is not something that awaits for you at the end of the rainbow. Happiness happens right here, right now, in every single moment. And it's something that whether it sits within you or not. And I'll give you an example. When I was at that job that I left in Spain to went traveling, on paper, I ticked every single box that people would define as success and happiness. Like, the classic, when you've half this salary, you would be happy. When you have a house, you would be happy. When you have a certain level of job, you would be happy. I wasn't. I had all of that, and I was as miserable as I had ever been. So that's what I was saying, that happiness is a very personal thing, and you should check in with yourself at every time, because what for others is happiness, it might not be for you. You may want like a house, in Miami,
Yeah.
and for others, it's like living on their own in the middle of the mountains. So
Right. I don't think we disagree. I just think that where I differ from your point of view, perhaps, is that, and I don't think we actually necessarily differ, because you're saying the same thing, but you're processing it in a different way. That you're saying that the universe is non-random, and I agree with you that the universe is non-random, but then you're saying that's it. It's non-random, and that's enough. Do you get what I'm saying? But I'm trying to build why it is non-random, and then how it correlates to us experiencing life and meaning, and then as an outcome, happiness. That is all linked. But what you're saying is it's not linked. It's, you've got the Big Bang, and then you've got happiness, and you've got non-randomness, but there's no connection between all of that. Do you know what I'm saying?
like for me, I'm saying it's non-random in the sense that I don't think there was a hand that put it all together and said, there you go, people, go and live and create an experience. I don't think necessarily that had happened. I think the connection and the happiness and the soul and the past lives and carried on, that definitely is all connected. The place we're in, I don't think necessarily has to be. I'm saying it's non-random in the sense that it happened because of a result of several things that boil down to that moment where that universe, call it space we live in, was created. But I don't think it had necessarily to be kind of a higher power that said, I'm going to set these up for these people to go and inhabit in here and create this.
Well, I mean, I don't put a picture on what the higher power is. I don't have that. I don't have that processing capability to be able to understand.
No.
But I do believe that there's something behind the universe that holds the universe in place. You get what I'm saying? So that is what I call non-random. But then I also believe that if there is something behind the universe that's holding the universe in place, then you're not designed for no reason. So if it's just casting you out to exist, then it's like, doesn't make any sense. Like, you would have a child and then you would throw it in the jungle and say, go survive, figure it out. And
you would not do that. And I guess, it's a different way of definition, as you were saying. And you could argue that the universe purpose in itself was to host a place for all of us to come and be. And that's the connection with it. And whoever, what, why, where created it, that's the purpose of it. And that is its non-randomness. Who did it and why? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, well, what I say is there has to be something, but I don't have the computing capability to process what that is, because if I had that power, I would have to be of that same entity to have that processing capability to understand what that is. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely,
so it's beyond my pay grade to be able to understand that. But it's not that we can't logically or rationally reason to an understanding that there is something bigger or greater than ourselves. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, and I think we both agreed on that. What it is, we just don't know.
Well, I'm arguing that you may not know because you can't conceive it. You can't understand it. So that is not that you can't have a relationship with it. You can't. It's like I said, if you have a child and you create the child, but then you put it out into the jungle and you have no connection with it afterwards, then it just doesn't seem to rest well with my my reasoning. If you have a creation, there has to be a mechanism whereby you would tell that thing what its meaning or purpose is. Do you know what I'm saying? Then the mechanism is in itself is like a subject of a whole other conversation. But I'm just saying, generally speaking, it would not make sense, because then you could equally not have, there's no reason to have a higher power, because if you're not in a relationship with that entity that put you into existence, it's the equivalent as having no entity. Whether you had an entity or no entity, whether the universe was random or not random, would be irrelevant, because in both situations you're not, there's no interaction. Do you get what I'm saying? So it's as if it is random.
Yeah. But I think, as you said, we were just saying the same. You call it a higher power, I call it something bigger than us.
Yeah.
You don't know what it is. I don't know what it is.
Well, when it's bigger or higher, it's above, right? So it's the same thing. It's just semantics, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So final question is basically, they say you're the average of the 5 people that you hang out with. So who would be the 5 people that you would want to most hang out with, past, present, or future, to raise your average?
Oh, my chosen 5. Does my, direct family, like my children and my partner, count us as that? Because then I'm running out 3 already.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said, it's who are the 5 people that you're the average of the 5 people that you hang around with. Who are the 5?
Well, I'll definitely give you those 3. Because they are the better part of me, I think, the way I see it.
Right.
I probably would want to hang out again with my aunt, the one that passed away, my big child, just because of that kind, naive, and generous feeling. Who else would I want to hang out with? I have to think of that 5th one. Because you see, I was at my mum, but my mum would feel her like part of me already. So whether she's there or not, she's there. Don't know whether that makes sense. I don't know. I'll have to think who that 5th one is.
Well, we can't end the show without that 5th person.
Who would I want to have next to me to help me be better? Probably Nelson Mandela.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Final question? What's your definition of success?
Well, we're going to get back into the cycle, but for me, the definition of success is waking up every morning and feeling joy and happiness.
Cool. Listen, thank you so much for hanging out with me. I appreciate you, and hope you enjoyed the conversation. And
thank you. No, it was good good conversation.
Yeah,
Thank you for having me.
Tell all my guests to bring a cup of tea next time.
Yeah, I mean that's going to be mandatory. I had my water though.
Yeah, you probably would you be able to stay up, or would you be able to go to sleep if you had your tea?
I probably would, but I just to be honest, I like water. That's what you would find me drinking most of the time. I have my coffee in the morning. It's kind of like my morning ritual, but then I just switch on to water. I'm a water person.
All right, Lucia, thank you so much. Thanks for hanging out with me. Appreciate you.
No worries. Thank you for having me. Have a good day.
And you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.